less items. What a thing I would love my students to know. And so they're going to buy less items. As a matter of fact, in the problem it says they have to buy 7 less magazines. So they may or may not have ever lived on a fixed budget, and so they might need to have you think through those thoughts with them. And then we know the average price in January is the dollars divided by the number of magazines. I should say number of magazines. And so in this case, there was still $80. It's a fixed price, but now they're buying 7 less magazines. And so to make this equation then, average price in January, I would put those two things equal to each other. So this average price in January, 80 over x minus 7, is the same as this average price in January, which was the average price in December, plus 70 cents. And you can decide how you want to write that, 70 over 100. I'm going to write 7 over 10. You could put the 0.7. And then I would go ahead and solve this. When I solved this problem, let me see if I can find the answer for you just so you can check your answers. I got x equals 32. I'd also, in factoring, got negative 25. And I threw that out. Negative magazines didn't make sense. And so that's what I would go with. The factoring on this is difficult, so you may have a feeling like, I don't know if I want to make my kids factor that. As a matter of fact, let's see if I can, sorry, I just slid right off there. Let's see if I can show you that. When I had simplified this for a while, I got down to, finally, x squared minus 7x minus 800 equals 0. And you could use quadratic formula if you don't want to factor. We have a perfectly good formula. Lots of people use it for that very reason. They don't want to mess around and factor. And some of you would go ahead and put this into 4 terms and do factoring by grouping, which is great, but it's still pretty hard to think of the 2 terms in the middle that would add up to negative 7. It's the same thought that I have to have here if I try to guess and check this problem. And so if your kids are still kind of stuck with guess and check, you may want to give them tool. Well, first of all, offer them quadratic formula. It's perfectly wonderful and it will work. It takes a little bit of work. But if they would like to try factoring, then what you need is to think of factors of 800 that are going to have a difference of 7. And the first factors I thought of were 80 and 10. And those have much further apart than 7. So if I cut 80 in half, I tried 40 and 20. And that was still further apart than 7. If I cut 40 in half, I'd had 20 and 40, so I kind of seemed at a dead end right there. Thought, what else can divide in here besides 2s, maybe 5s? What if I divided the 80 by 5 instead? If I divide 80 by 5, I'd have 16, and I multiplied that 5 over here, I have 50. Again, the idea is I'm just trading the factors. If you think of the factors all listed out here, I'm going to take one of the factors from 80 and I'm going to slide it over the other column. Still, they're all multiplying together to be 800. 16 and 50 still not 7 apart, but if I divide this 50 by 2, take a factor of 2 out of this and put it over here, I'd have 32 and 25. Those are 7 apart, so it turns out my factoring is x minus 32, x plus 25, and that's how I ended up getting those answers. So if your students are having trouble with factoring, and then here we are giving them these big giant numbers, that's just a skill that you can use, that trading factors back and forth. I learned that from a teacher who called it the NFL trading method, and they traded factors back and forth to be able to keeping the product still at 800. So anyway, that's the library problem. The other problem in the assignment that's like that is an investor equation, and so I'm not going to go over that one, but I'm going to tell you just for your own checking of your own work. This was the equation I finally came up with after a bit of a sense making. This was the original cost per share, and that was $10 less than the cost per share now. And so that's how I got that. After I did all this work, I got to this factoring spot. Again, it was a little bit unfriendly to factor that. And I played around one more time with, 640 could be 64 times 10. That's not 52 apart. It's kind of close. It's 54 apart. Oh, actually, since this is positive, they're going to both be positive or both negative. It's the add up to 52. So I decided to cut 64 in half and make it 32. That 2 that I divided by and multiply over here. And actually that adds up to 52 right away. So if I make this negative 32 and negative 20, I'm going to get x equals 32 and x equals 20. And it turns out that both of those answers work if you go ahead and check them up here. Neither of them is extraneous. They both make a true solution. So there's two possible original share, cost per share that were there. So what this problem allowed us to do is practice sense making, practice writing a rational equation or solving a rational equation, practice factoring, solving a quadratic equation. So lots of skill practice we're getting. I'm hearing from people, they're wishing we had more skill practice. Here it is, okay? You don't need to give 100 of these. In this problem, there's probably like 4 different problems as far as work goes. So don't make the assignments long, especially if you want them to be sense-making. If you made all of the problems exactly the same, gosh, that would go a lot faster. But we're not doing that, and so because of that, you need to give them time. All right, that's it for my comments about the word problems. I wish you the best of luck with those, and choose wisely.